So let's talk a little bit about our author. He was born in Northampton, England in 1962. As far as his early family life, we only really know that he was raised by an architect. It doesn't get super specific. However, we do come to know that he starts a family of his own later on, has a wife and a daughter. And he graduated from Oxford University and later on returned to get his master's in English Lit. Some outside fact about him is that he had great interest in abstract art, and as you can see pictured on this slide, those are some of his own pieces of work. And before he began writing and getting into that, he was creating and selling his art to make money. Mark Haddon has many gifts and talents, and he used these gifts and talents to be involved in many things, such as being an illustrator for magazines, cartoonist, and a co-writer of comic strips. And he even wrote his first children's book in 1987, and then continued with this and wrote a whole children's series shortly after. After that, he continued targeting a younger audience by creating several episodes for Microsoap, which was a children's sitcom. This is important to note because the novel we read, A Curious Incident, was one of his first novels to be released, geared towards a more adult/young adult audience. His novel is set in year 1998 around the town of Swindon, London. A Curious Incident is contemporary literature and takes a very realistic situation with realistic characters and brings the story to life in a very emotional yet comical tone. And there's a lot of UK culture that is embedded into the story. It is seen through our protagonist, Christopher, and his father, and the way that they interact, the way they speak, along with their everyday diets and foods that they eat. For example, they eat a lot of beans and toast, which comes from the influence of the culture.
The Curious Incident takes place in Swindon, England in the year 1998. The central locations where the story takes place include Christopher's home, where he lives with his father, Ed, and the surrounding neighborhood, Christopher's special education school, the train station, and Judy's, Christopher's mom's, apartment in London.
So here's a brief overview of the characters of our novel. You have our protagonist, who is Christopher Boone, and it is completely told through his eyes. He is a 15-year-old boy with autism, and he ultimately is just trying to uncover the murder of his neighbor's dog, Wellington. Ed Boone is the father of Christopher. He is slightly tempered, and he does try his best to handle Christopher appropriately and gently. It just does not always go well. Judy Boone is the mother of Christopher, who Ed actually convinced Christopher died of a heart attack. She's located in London with her partner, Roger Shears, and is later formally introduced in person. Mrs. Shears is neighbors to Christopher and his dad, and she's the ex-wife of Judy's partner, who is Christopher's mom. And her dog is the one that got murdered. Here are a few more characters to introduce to you. There's Alexander, who is a very old neighbor of Christopher's who tries to become close with him. There's Wellington, of course, the large poodle that was owned by Mrs. Shears. Wellington is found dead in the yard in the beginning of the novel, so this is the dog that Christopher is investigating. And then there's Toby, of course, Christopher's pet rat that keeps him very calm. And Christopher brings him with him when he runs away to London after discovering his mom is still alive.
The story follows a 15-year-old Christopher Boone who shows clear signs of Asperger's syndrome, although he's not explicitly diagnosed in the book. Christopher experiences the world unlike the average person. He's extremely aware of his environment, very gifted in terms of academics and critical thinking, and has a strict list of his most favorite things and his least favorite things. After he discovers Wellington, his neighbor's dog, dead in their backyard, Christopher sets out to investigate the murder, and along the way we learn about his passions, family relationships, and all of the fleeting thoughts that occupy his mind. Christopher lives with his father, Ed Boone, after his mother, Judy Boone, died of a heart attack. The story is told from Christopher's point of view as he looks for clues to find out who killed Wellington. In his search, he discovers letters from his seemingly deceased mother. Christopher's father then tells him a secret that makes him fear his own safety.
Development and style. So the story is told from a logic-based perspective of Christopher, considering he does struggle with processing emotions and does not enjoy most human interaction. He's very specific with who he likes to talk to. He uses his intelligent mindset and internal thoughts to guide his readers through his wonders, worries, and his investigation methods towards Wellington. Haddon uses a very neutral, objective, and informative tone, as that is exactly how Christopher experiences the world. Christopher, Ed, and Judy all carry an ill-tempered tone when involved in a crisis or a frustrating situation. This leads to exaggeration of behavior. For example, Judy has an affair and moves away. Ed lashes out and becomes physically aggressive or abusive, and Christopher runs away.
The Curious Incident includes many different themes spread across a wide variety of topics. I'm going to discuss some of the main themes that The Curious Incident talks about. The first is alienation due to the ignorant attitudes of society. Christopher, our protagonist, is often made to feel left out just because he's different. He's looked down upon by others, and so he isolates himself. This has a significant impact on his relationships and how he experiences the world, and it's all due to society's perspective of him. Another main theme is the difficulty coping with instability. Even though Christopher is faced with monumental instabilities in his life, he overcomes them and is more resilient because of it. Christopher always has trouble initially when instability faces him, but using strategies such as thinking logically helps him overcome these barriers. This is a lesson to all of us who probably don't have to deal with the ongoing struggle that Christopher does. Another main theme is the importance of self-acceptance. Christopher's journey to self-acceptance shows that being different doesn't prevent one from achieving things. Christopher is successful in his own ways, and he doesn't need societal approval to recognize that. Another theme is using logic to explain the world rather than emotions. Since Christopher has difficulty understanding his own emotions and the emotions of others around him, he tends to use logic to experience the world. This helps him to be more reasonable and is a lesson to all of us to consider an objective point of view in situations. It's something we could all use a little more of, as it's really easy to overthink and let our emotions take over. It's important to focus on what we know first before diving too deep into a problem. Another last central theme is constantly seeking truth and safety. Christopher is trying to uncover truths about the world and his family throughout the whole story. He always seeks the truth and can't just let a mystery go. In a similar manner, Christopher prioritizes his safety. He always carries his Swiss Army knife around with him and is always prepared to use it. He's aware that the world is a dangerous place, and he is prepared to fend for himself if he needs to. In terms of literary criticism, we all mostly looked at the same research paper since there was not many resources for our book. The paper was from Disability Studies Quarterly and had a few main themes that it touched on. The first being that Christopher's disability is never explicitly mentioned in the book. This is significant because it insinuates that his differences are inferred by the way that society treats him. The paper also points out how Haddon is critiquing the medical model of disabilities through Christopher's very existence. Even experts on Christopher's condition, such as his special education teacher, can't really figure out how to treat him. This brings us back to how normal and even not normal is a social construction. These standards are manifested in society's uniformed, uninformed judgments and aren't a true testament to who we are. Disability is not some objective factor, it's need that defines it. The Curious Incident is not only a novel, but has also been turned into a play and has won a wide variety of awards, as you can see on the slide behind me. I'm not going to name all of the awards for the sake of avoiding redundancy, but as you can see, it's very popular and accomplished, and the novel itself won the best book for young adults. And in the next slide, we will be showing a awards clip from the show itself, so you can kind of get a sense of what the play looks like.
Throughout the entirety of the novel, the most prominent symbols that Haddon uses are dogs. Dogs are able to symbolize Christopher's safety. Especially after he finds out the truth of who killed the dog, he begins to take on dog-like qualities whenever he feels a threat from other people because it makes him feel like he is protected. This is seen when he states, "And someone bumped into me as they walked past me, and I made a noise like a dog barking to scare them off," page 154. Therefore, readers are really able to understand how acting like a dog made Christopher feel more safe and able to deal with threats that he felt were around him. Therefore, it really demonstrates how dogs symbolize Christopher's safety.
On a dark and stormy night, Christopher noticed something laying lifeless in the distance. He realized it was his neighbor's, Mrs. Shear's, dog with a fork going through its body. It had been drowning in its own blood, but it was red, his favorite color, so he crept towards it. It was not long until Christopher's interest on the dead animal led him straight into accusations of being the murderer. He would not allow others to think that of him, especially since it was not true. So, Christopher decided to do what Christopher did best. He was not only going to start an investigation, but document it in his own book he was writing to get to the bottom of it.
After Christopher's mother died from a heart attack, Christopher lives with just his father, Ed, who seems to be a trustworthy and loving figure in Christopher's life. However, Ed doesn't fully understand why Christopher is so engulfed in the mystery of Wellington's murder and will do anything to stop him from writing his novel. Christopher doesn't listen to his father and continues his investigation, where he finds something suspicious in his father's room. Notes. Tons of them. All addressed to Christopher Boone. But from who? His dead mother. What other secrets could Christopher's father be hiding? Join Christopher in his adventure as he uncovers secrets and solves mysteries in The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime by Mark Haden.
The use of imagery in Haddon's novel is quite different from other novels because the main character, Christopher, can't really use imagery to describe anything because he is a very factual person, and if he's describing something, he's going to describe it as is. However, other characters around Christopher, such as Christopher's mother, is seen using imagery to describe the life she could have had if she hadn't married Christopher's father, when she states, "And we'd have a veranda of figs growing over it, and there would be a field of sunflowers at the bottom of the garden, and a little town on the hill in the distance, and we'd sit outside in the evening and drink red wine and smoke Galosse's cigarettes and watch the sun go down," on page 78. Readers are really able to understand that Christopher can't really use imagery again, and their source of imagery is mainly coming from the characters around Christopher. The motifs that Haddon uses in the novel are through patterns, which is seen throughout the other characters around Christopher getting very frustrated with him because Christopher interprets everything literally, making him not able to understand metaphors and then further leading others to be frustrated with him. And this is seen when Christopher's father is talking to Christopher and he states, "You go around sticking your noses into other people's business. You go around raking up the past and sharing it with every Tom, Dick, and Harry you bump into," page 82. Readers are really able to understand that Christopher isn't really able to keep a secret, and that results in other people around him becoming very frustrated with him. I think that the narrator's style and voice is one of the most interesting things of the entire novel because the novel is supposed to be more of like an adult murder mystery kind of novel. However, the narrator describes sentences and events in a very simple and childlike manner. Because he starts his sentences with the words but and, it really reflects the informality of his sentences. This is seen when he starts a sentence with, and I don't like when people surprise me on page 82. This voice makes Christopher an amazing narrator because of his precise recollection and his ability to really describe every event that is going around him along with what he is feeling internally. This makes the entire novel really easy to follow. And this is really seen when Christopher states, "My memory is like a film. That is why I am really good at remembering things," page 76. And also, the next day, I saw 4 yellow cars in a row on the way to school, which made it a black day, page 53. This really just demonstrates the ability that Christopher has to describe every single detail, and he is able to remember things very, very clearly, making him honestly the perfect narrator for a murder mystery.
A really big challenge that I noticed while reading this novel was constantly seeing Christopher, who's a character that the audience already inherently feels bad for, seeing him struggle with his familial life and his relationship with his dad, along with his feelings of alienation, on top of his learning disability that he is so self-conscious about, and trying to put myself in his shoes and just trying to absorb how difficult that experience must be, especially with all the chaos in his home life, and just trying to process that. That was something really challenging, just mentally, to try and get through, like putting myself in his shoes. Something rewarding though is that he eventually overcomes the hardships that he faced with his dad, with his mom, with his self-doubt and his self-worth. He eventually overcomes all of those things towards the end of the novel, which is really refreshing because it's the whole novel was kind of just really focusing on his lack of self-worth and self-love, so that the way that it ends on that note is just really sums it all up really nicely. And the theme relevance, so as I just stated, the novel ends with Christopher having a new outlook on self-acceptance and self-love, because over the course of the novel he had proven to himself that he's worthy of being loved and worthy of being loved by himself, not just by other people, after years and years of feeling just alienated by society and by his parents. If I had to teach this novel, I would definitely focus on Christopher's feelings of self-love and acceptance, as they're really fluctuating, and they also parallel the self-worth that he feels based off of the alienation he feels at that point in the book. So, for example, his parents and everything that happened with his parents when he found out about the malicious acts that his dad did, his self-worth was at such an all-time low due to that, because they're all connected. And I find that very interesting, especially from a perspective of someone with a learning disability.
So for my second homework assignment, I did a resume for Christopher, and I kind of focused on his love for physics and math and science. And so I added some jobs in there that had to do with physics. And then I also included the Curious Incident as a published work for him, since technically in the book he is the one writing the book. And then I added some physics related awards, and I used his father and his special education teacher as references. And then I kind of touched on like his strengths and weaknesses. His strengths being that he's really determined and curious, and weaknesses being that he gets distracted really easily and he's very irritable. And then I just included some of his special skills about how he's really good at obscure math problems and good with animals. And then Brianna also did a character card for her second homework assignment, and kind of talked about Christopher's personality and some of his likes and dislikes. The AP prompt that we chose for this novel is from 1970 and reads, "Choose a character from a novel or play of recognized literary merit and write an essay in which you A. briefly describe the standards of the fictional society in which the character exists, and B. show how the character is affected by and responds to those standards. In your essay, don't merely summarize the plot." This prompt is very applicable to the Curious Incident, as the story constantly demonstrates how society views and treats Christopher, who is seen as different. The story also captures Christopher's unique perspectives, interpretations, and reactions to these attitudes, making this a very fitting prompt to write on.
Why this prompt? We believe this prompt perfectly aligns with Christopher and his differing perception of society that he confronts on a daily basis. The standard of the fictional society Christopher lives in is one that parallels our current reality in every aspect, except that it emphasizes the reality that Christopher lives in within his own mind. Being someone with Asperger's really takes the mundane situations and takes the mundane conversations and processes them in a different light and in a different manner. Therefore, his perception of reality and of society is extremely different than someone such as I or someone else who does not have Asperger's would experience it. Therefore, using this prompt on the AP would allow for students to analyze the differing implications that learning disabilities could add to situations and force them to view life from a different perspective. In conclusion, I really enjoyed this novel as it allowed me to view life through a new lens and through a new perspective that is not usually shown through literature or film or TV. After completing this book and reflecting on the self-love and worth that Christopher was able to find towards the end, I was able to fully grasp the importance of societal inclusion, as it was crucial to the overwhelming feelings of alienation he consistently faced. Reading this novel will allow for anyone to take a step back from their own life and pinpoint different aspects and experiences in their life where they themselves might have felt alienated from society or from their family or friends, and how they grew from that very difficult experience.